Alright, so this is not my usual video, obviously, but the year's coming to a close, and I just wanted to talk about it. Really, I mean, my life in particular has taken a really huge turn lately, and this 2024 has been the longest and the best year of my life for sure. Well, it actually changed the latter half of last year, but it was notably this year when everything just really happened. And I just wanted to talk at length about that. Um, I just realized while I was talking, hopefully the vocal fry doesn't get too annoying. I just learned about that recently, and now I'm thinking about it a lot. But um, uh, I don't really have a solid script for this. I mostly have some bullet points to make sure I cover particular areas and things and hopefully keep things more coherent, but this is it might get a bit rambly. Um and yeah, I'm really not planning on doing anything with the visuals or anything. Uh, Hopefully I can at least have some time to draw something or I don't know. Uh I mean, this is really just meant to be listened to, and yeah, to grab a snack or something, play a game, and yes, I guess I'll just get started at that point. So, uh, mm, guess we'll start it. I don't know if this is really the beginning because it's kind of just going over some things, but uh, it's kind of hard to explain what most of my life has been like. I'm tempted to say that life was very boring, difficult, but I actually kind of enjoyed it in the way I wanted, as much as I could understand anyway. I wasn't really that adventurous outside the comforts of my own home. Um, and I never really struggled in particular. Food was always on the table, bills were paid, and I mean this in terms of living at home with my parents from childhood until whatever. Uh, there was electricity and whatever. If anything, I was pretty sheltered, um, mostly because my parents were overprotective. But I don't know. I think that kind of just eventually developed into being the kind of person I was, just staying at home. Uh, I don't know, making art, playing games. That's pretty much it. Didn't really do sports. Well, I guess I did marching band for a hot minute, but yeah, um, yeah, just being pretty quiet and such. Uh, yeah, so that was like grade school, and yep. Eventually, some stuff happened. My parents and I just um, got into disagreements about life and things that I don't really want to get into that whole thing, you know, family matters and all that. Well, I did talk about it on one corner of the internet. Um, you can, I'm sure you can find it, if you dig it out, um, if you search for it. It's not really something I really want to air out into the world, but the point is, things just kind of stopped being super great between us, and it just became a bit of a struggle to live at home, like mental struggle, I suppose. Like, yeah, so, yeah, it's kind of a struggle. Um, but I wasn't really that rebellious. But um, again, I really just stayed at home and I liked following rules. I never really had like a fighting spirit, I guess. Like I was very non-confrontational for sure, but I still needed to get out somehow. Couldn't really deal with stuff very well. But I could never get a job though. Um, it's like the weirdest struggle ever. Well, I guess I'm kind of speaking out of order. I the family stuff happened like it's like mid high school, and then I continued living at their house like even post high school, and I wanted to get a job, but I never could get one. It was uh like just no one would hire me for anything, and I can't could never figure out how to describe how frustrating that is being like jobless. Like I remember going on forums about being jobless, and there are all these posts about people who, express their frustration. I'm like, yeah, but all of them seem to already have a job before. Like, obviously, it's still struggling. It still sucks that they they were experiencing like years of not having a job. Like that sucks for sure. But they were all saying, "Oh, like I was laid off," and I'm like, I've never had a job before, so you still have something over me. It's like just that idea that someone is going to believe that I can do something as basic, like just a basic job, like anything that, like any starter job, like any teen would have, like just fast food or retail, like just anything very just normal job things. Um, I like I don't know if I could uh, handle food service. I really hate food waste and this. Yeah, that's its whole thing. But retail in particular, I know people don't really like that kind of stuff, but I would have loved it. Like I already like throughout my life when I shop in a store and I see something out of place, like I know where it goes, so I will put it back. So I knew that if I was ever to get a retail job, like that'd be wonderful. Like I would love to put things back. I love to take inventory of stock and just, you know, it just seemed fun. I don't know how well I'd do as a cashier, but everything else sounded great. Like cleaning stuff. I think that would be great. But it never happened for me. It's very embarrassing for sure. Um, no one would hire me for anything. And it's so frustrating. Um, and I couldn't move on in life because, you have to make rent and you have to buy food and, just very normal people stuff. I couldn't do it. All I did, I wasn't, I still was able to make a little bit of money. You know, I feel like everyone should know this, but, for those who are new, I guess maybe some random person might find this video, but, I started doing art commissions. Uh, well, I didn't start at the end of high school. I started, um, I don't know, beginning of high school. I didn't make a lot, and I still don't, but it was enough. It was something. Oh, it wasn't enough. Yeah, it was something. Uh, I did that. I also helped out with a friend's business, kind of, after high school. And that was the closest thing I ever had that was close to being at any kind of job, and when I did that, I really tried to amp things up when announcing it because I was just so excited that something like a job is happening. But um, that didn't last forever. It was cool. I had fun, but yeah, it's nothing on the books for jobs, and it's just I couldn't get anything like legitimate. Like nothing that could get recognized as income or something like that. Um, and I feel like maybe people should like take this with a grain of salt, or I should say that or something, because you know, art is legitimate. I don't want to be like, oh, freelance artists aren't a legitimate job. 'Cause yes, of course it is, but it becomes legitimate when you can actually live off of it, and I could not live off of what I was doing. So, um, right. So that was it. Couldn't get a job, but I really wanted to move out. I feel like so I mentioned, things turned a bit sour between myself and my parents, but that whole thing is really complicated. Uh, I don't want people to get the wrong idea of my parents because I feel like there are really, like, really bad parents out there, and that's not how I feel about my parents. They definitely care about me and they want me to live and survive. And as weird as it is, like that's I, mm, they they love me and that's why they do what they do, even if I disagree and we can't really reach a conclusion. And it's you know I really don't want to rant about this whole thing because it sounds like I'm excusing them for stuff that wasn't that nice to do. But all I can say is it's complicated, sucky, and just have to compromise and roll with the punches and whatever. Uh, so they didn't have an issue with me living there after high school. It's kind of a cultural thing. Um, I'm Filipino, for those who don't know. Well, I guess I don't really talk about that, but there was never any pressure for me to like get the hell out when I turned 18 or anything like that. So I think that's really important to note, and probably no, and is why like things weren't like difficult. It wasn't difficult to live, in terms of finances and things, because my parents had my back on that. Uh, but yeah, I lived there like after graduating high school, didn't really have anything lined up, so I was just living there, and there was nothing like nothing bad about that. Like they never shamed me for anything like that, and I thought and I just that's great. I had no plans after high school though, um, which I guess kind of culminated to the whole just being there. But uh, I guess I should probably talk about that actually. So I've had this weird problem like pretty much my whole life, but I couldn't slash can't really envision the future. Um, yeah, that's really hard to explain, like in a way that would make sense. But the point is, I can't make goals, or I think I'll just speak in past tense, so that might help, because things are a little wavering uh, nowadays, which is a good thing. But yeah, I couldn't make goals. It's a big reason why I struggled to move on in life for sure. I mean, among many other big things. But I couldn't imagine much past maybe like a year after, or in regards to school. Like be like, well, I'll finish school, might take these classes, and yeah. That was pretty much the extent of my future foresight, I think it's called. It's just there wasn't really much after that. So with that said, I couldn't really make goals. And when you can't make goals, you don't really have much of a motivation to do stuff. So I didn't really, I couldn't really do stuff. I mean, like I could, I enjoyed life. I really did. And I, I enjoyed living life, but it was very much day to day stuff. I looked forward to a new day, and that's pretty much it. Which I guess is kind of poetic and dramatic, and I like putting it that way. But it was very much like I enjoying in the moment, I suppose. But yeah, nothing of the future stuff. And I kind of wish I said this like backwards, like live day to day, couldn't make plans, and then the whole future thing. But yeah, whatever. You'll just have to deal with that. Yeah. Let me look at my notes. I haven't looked at it in a bit. Yep. Couldn't make goals. Yep. So aside from all that, I mean, not aside from it, but with that said, I still had to keep going because I don't know, felt like I had to. Well, I I don't know what's gonna make my content get blocked on YouTube, but you know, I'm sure everyone, like everyone else, I did struggle with mental health garbage. There's many, KMS moments floating around in my head, but I think this might connect with the non-confrontational living thing I did, but I really could never do anything extreme, I would say, in regards to the bad thoughts. I mean, there was stuff that I did that wasn't a good thing to do, but there was never like an attempt. I could, if I may say, there was never an attempt on, you know, ending it. Like not a single one. So, you know, basically, I couldn't stop living. Well, we'll just put it like that. Um, but yep. So I had to do something. I had to get out. Couldn't get a job. So me not being able to get a job, not being confrontational, and not, you know, all these things that I just really held back on doing and whatnot, and following the rules and things. I The only option that I could see was that pursuing a higher education and post high school, of course, because I realized, my parents, they support me financially and they would definitely support me on education. And, back on the whole, they care about me and stuff. It's like, there's a, I feel like I might have actually asked them before that, like, I want to move out, but I need help. And it's like, what are you going to do kind of situation. So me pursuing an education was like my excuse to be like, "Hey, I'm moving out. Can I have some help with finances?" And so, them seeing me doing something, I was like, "Oh yeah, that's great." So they did that, Again, I'm very thankful that, excuse me, I'm very thankful that I have that resource. My parents are a great resource, and care about me and they support me financially. A lot of people don't have that, so you know, putting it out there. Yeah. So I moved out for a little bit and did that. I really didn't have a drive for school. if that wasn't apparent. But I wanted to pass my classes, and part of the whole following rules and such. It's like I want to see good grades, Uh, but since I didn't really I don't really super consider myself smart in the sense. Of course, that's this whole thing, smarts and how you measure that is its whole thing. But arguably, I think I'm sure anyone can say that art is kind of easier than most subjects, you know, compared to, science and math, things that you have to really, it's a lot of like memorization with those, with STEM and such. And it's very commendable. I think it's awesome that people can do it. And of course, arts is its own thing. And maybe you don't have to know all these terms and such, but there's also a lot of studying that goes into that. But I'm sure I don't have to go into this whole thing, but it was it was something I could see myself succeeding in academically at least. It's a lot of project based stuff. Just make something, you know, yeah. So that is what I did. I just pursued an art degree just to have something on the books, and yeah, finished that, and then I went back home. Yeah, I went back home, and I was pretty much just stewing at home all over again. Nothing had changed that much since I left. Yeah, I was just there. I was like, I need to get out. Still couldn't get a job. No one would hire me. Yeah, it really was just, the same stuff all over again. So I did what I knew what to do, and I pretty much did it all over again. But I moved a lot further out. The first time that I just talked about, I didn't move that far. It was mostly just like a town over. It was comfortable enough for me to do that. But for this one, I was like, I need to be a little bit further away. So I, I went to a community college, by the way. So I did community college. So I'm like, well, what's the next step above community college? Like, hmm, universities. Yeah, that's what people do, right? Like I, I didn't really understand post high school schooling, to be honest. So I just, I don't know. I just, applied and I'm like, all right, this is something people do. So the story was like it again, I told my parents, see, applying to school. Like, oh, okay, exciting. So, yep. So I moved out further and it was almost like 2 years of just, same stuff. You're just going through the motions all over again. And at this point, um, I had pretty much stopped interacting that much with people. Mm, I mean, I wasn't super sociable to begin with. Like throughout my life, it wasn't really like that. I was in a friend group in high school, but pretty much after high school, like I had a small circle of friends after that, but eventually things just disbanded and such. And I never really quite got into like making friends, really. Kind of got exhausted over it, and just, um, yeah, I think most of it was exhaustion, and other it was just like I don't know. I like my space, but at this point of me uh, going into university, I was like, yeah, I'm making no effort into making friends. I don't care. I'm just doing stuff to do stuff, Well, I wasn't. I try not to be an asshole, you know, but I very much did, the bare minimum of interacting. You know, yeah. So I did that. I passed my classes. Of course, I pursued more art degree stuff. It's like, you know, like I said, it's the same thing as I did before. It was just, you know, pass my classes and do something. I don't know. Very thankful for financial aid that helped all my schooling up to this point. Community college and university and whatnot. Very thankful for that. Uh, but it was the summer of last year that my parents were like, "Okay, you should start using your grant money for rent." And I was like, "Okay." And I mean, they didn't. I don't know if they implied anything of that or if you even thought about this, but I felt like that was kind of like a long overdue, like, start looking for a job kind of nudge. Um, I don't know. I never got that vibe from them, but like I feel like I mean I'm counting it. Like I kind of thought of it like the universe is like, okay, you need to start doing something a little bit more substantial. So I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it, but you know, um, I mean, I, I don't know. Well, my parents actually told me that like let them know when I run out of money, so it wasn't like a we're gonna stop and you can never ask us again kind of thing. It was, I don't know. It was just, them saying like, hey, can you use your funds for a little bit, I suppose. So, I don't know. Personally, I just didn't want to come back crawling to them begging for money and just continuing to be a financial burden like I had been for so long. So, I was like, I'm gonna try job hunting. I'm in a completely different area. Like, it's a lot more populated than what I was used to, so maybe I might actually have a chance at getting a job. But I I didn't really have experience that I could use on a resume or anything like that. Like I wasn't really involved in stuff. Not really. Like, you know, but I was like, I need some kind of experience. And so I started trying to volunteer. And I did volunteer at food banks for uh, the summer, which was really fun, actually. I've always wanted to work in a physical space. Mm, I don't know, work from home jobs seem either not fun or a scam. Like a scam to others and also myself. Like, I don't know, applying to jobs online always seems really strange for some reason. Um, I mean, there's also the reason of the fact that, like, I don't know, you just send in an application to a screen and it just goes in there, as opposed to, I don't know, I never had this experience, but I've always heard of, people like, oh, in the old days, you just go up to the manager and hand them a resume, and that whole thing. But even so, even though I never experienced that whole thing, it was like, I don't know, applying to stuff online just doesn't seem like it's gonna go anywhere. So, um, yeah. Um, what was I? Oh, food banks. Yeah, food volunteering at food banks is really fun. Like if you've never done it, I recommend. Well, I'm talking as if everyone has my same interests and stuff. well, I guess I'll just talk about my interests. I don't know, just moving around in space is really fun. Things that I did in particular, uh, I wish I had more time to do it nowadays, but what I did and that when I was doing a lot more uh, at the food bank, I would pretty much just run up and down an alleyway pushing carts uh, to and from like the food location. Um, excuse me. Like there'd be the building inside, no, inside the building. There'd be the parts where people would actually set up the food carts, and then they put it in the alleyway, and the alleyway was where the cart get pushed out with a beverage, and it would go out to either people with carts or people with cars outside. So yeah, so that was really fun. Going back and forth. Yeah, um, I could go on about how fun that is, but maybe I shouldn't. The thing is, it's really fun. I definitely consider it. I recommend you consider helping out. They always need people. There's all different kinds of stuff you can do. Um, I don't know. Maybe you would like it. I certainly do. But yeah, so um, yeah, volunteering at the food bank. I did that, and then I was emailed by the theater department at my campus, and this was I think the very end of the summer, and they're like, if you like making stuff, consider joining. I think they just emailed all the art students. I guess the visual studio art students, because theater still counts as art, like music, and yeah. So they sent out to the art students uh, email, saying to join if you want, and I was like, yeah, that seems kind of fun. That can also be something I could add to my resume because it seems that uh, they're like building stuff and using tools and things. I'm like, you know what, that could be something I could put on my resume, and that might be helpful to me. So, I'll do that for a semester, and I'll just move on. But I ended up falling for it really hard. Like it was so fun. I was like, where has this been all my life? Like I don't know. It was something so far removed from what I was used to. It it was just where do I begin? I really didn't write any of this down. I was just like I was emailed and then it moves on to the next topic. Oops. So, oh man. So, yeah. Um I had to join a class in order to help with them. I kind of was a little bit bummed about that. It's like, oh man, now I have to register for more class for another class to um, register for more units, and then I'm like, oh, there's financial aid. It's like, oh, okay, well, okay, I'm just whatever. So thankfully, financial aid pushed through and it helped me with all that. But yeah, and then I was in the class, and I was again, I really wasn't super into meeting people, and I was kind of a little bit a little bit more avoidant of people at this point. But I gotta say, when you're working, creating things and building stuff so closely together, it's really not hard to get attached to people. So I started, opening up just a little bit. And if anything, at least just, asking questions about, how is is there like a better way to go about doing this on this project or whatever? So I was like, I can get down with these guys. I'll interact a little more. And then there's also, of course, the green room, another room in the theater where during during performances, that's where you would get ready and such. But during class, it's mostly just like a hangout area. So I would just hang out in there sometimes between classes, and every now and then, someone would be like, "Hi, what's your name?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." So, someone I've never had a class with before, but you know, they're chatty, so they'd say hi and ask for my name. And then, a couple days later, we'd pass each other in the hall and be like, "Hey, you," and they'd remember my name. I was like, that's that's so different than what I'm used to. It's like they're actually acknowledging me as a person as like, whoa. And, a lot of people did that in that space. And it really became super infectious. I was like, now I'm asking people's names. I'm like, oh, I remember their name and I could address them. It's like, oh man. So there was that whole thing about it. Like, very social aspect that I didn't experience for like all my life. Like, that just wasn't a thing that happened. So, yeah. And yeah. So, I mean, aside from that, kind of glossed over the stagecraft part, but I learned. I mean, I feel like really anyone can just learn how to like using power tools is really simple. Like anyone can learn how to use it. So there really wasn't like a huge learning curve, I feel, in regards to stagecraft, but it was still just something I just didn't do. I probably had like a few, runs of using, power tools when I was a bit younger with excuse me. I think I need some water. Hold on. All right, I stopped the recording just to take a sip. But what was I talking about? Uh, yeah, I would use like power tools like very rarely, like with my dad every now and then. But it was never like I'm constantly doing stuff or anything like that. So it, yeah, so I just learned how to use all these kinds of tools and made these huge structures. And of course, I made art, but it was very much small scale things and on the computer things. It was never anything bigger than like a regular piece of paper, physical stuff, anyways. So, like, I would like make large things with, wood and such. And, like we'd cut it, we'd shape it, and we would build stuff. I'm like, this is, and people would stand on it. I'm like, whoa. Um, as for one, I didn't really have much of any knowledge about theater whatsoever. I just knew that, there's people who act and direct, and that's it. Like, yeah, it's really bizarre looking back on it because, like, there's so much that goes into theater and, performances and all that stuff. It's like all that stuff in the background just doesn't appear. Like someone has to make it, and someone has to operate the lights. It's not just like you get on the stage and everything just happens. It's like someone has to make all that stuff, and it's really super mind blowing. And also just getting to be a part of that, of course, and making huge art pieces. And I'm collaborating with others, so that's really fun. I love collaboration. So yeah, um, and so uh, uh, at the end of the semester, this was the fall of 2023, last year. We were finishing up striking our last set, I believe. Um, excuse me. So I was, what was I talking about? Striking. Yeah, we striked our last set. I think it was. I just remember it being like a late night. So yeah, I think we only do. Yeah. Uh, anyway, sorry, a little bit uh disorganized. But my professor asked me if I was. This was like kind of at the end of the semester at this point, and he asked me, am I joining his advanced stagecraft class? And I was told him like I just got here, like I can't. I didn't do the prerequisite for it. In order to sign up for your classes, if there's a prereq, you cannot add it to your schedule because the system just won't let you if you don't have that. But and I told him this, and he was like he would permit me if I wanted to. I was like, really? And yeah, he's like he thought I would like it, and I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? That'd be kind of fun. So at this point, I was sitting here at home. I was I was like, I really don't want to stop doing this theater stuff. Like I want to stay just a little bit longer. I'm like, should I pursue a degree in theater? So, um, I was kind of torn between pursuing a double major. I mean, at this point, I was almost done with my graphic design degree. Like yeah, I'm studying graphic design by the way. Not super great at it. But yes, I was at the end of it. Like I literally only had like my two final courses to do, and then I was done. So I was like, I ended up not wanting to double major because I'm like, not only am I almost done with this, but if I majored in theater, then I'd probably stay like maybe 2 more years at school, and I don't know. I didn't feel like graduating with like a bachelor's at 30 years old, and not to say that there's any problem with that, but you know, I already I already used up so much of my life on school doing nothing in particular, and I was kind of over it. I'm like, I don't really want to be in school for too much longer. And uh, I don't know. And actually, one of the things that the professor that really tells all his students is that no one needs a degree to work in like theater tech. So, and that really stuck out to me in particular. And oh, also, I didn't want to deal with financial aid and how they dealt with double majors and such. Again, I had been in school for quite some time already, and I was like, maybe I'm gonna run out of financial aid if I do this. So I don't know. Point is, I was like, I'm not double majoring, but I did decide to minor in theater, and still working through that right now. But yeah, it seemed like a pretty good thing for me to do and be able to, just spend a little bit more time, but not too much time. And yeah, um, if I didn't minor in theater, I would have graduated like by now. But that's okay. It's really enjoyable. I love being around all the people. So yeah, yeah. Um, and advanced stagecraft was awesome. I did that this spring. We learned a lot of stuff, and the major thing was welding. Like I learned how to MIG weld and gas weld, and it was like I never really thought that much about welding or really metalworking that much. I mean, if you asked me at any point in life if I was interested in metalworking, I'd be like, yeah, but I don't have the opportunity for that, and kind of just left it at that. But then I just learned it here, and I loved it, and it was really cool. Um, I was only taking one other class aside from that one, so I had a lot of time to just, you know, go and practice welding outside class just for fun. Uh, I like draw my name with the MIG welder into like some piece of scrap, and then I'd like burn my name into another piece with the gas welder, and I don't know, I would just mess around and have fun, and I just loved it. So, uh, yeah. I mean, aside from that class, I was actually, uh, I wish I had a better way to segue into this, but I was hired for my first job, like right there, uh, in the theater, the campus job, you know. I guess campus jobs are really common. I was actually, I I had sought out campus jobs, you know, stuff like, you know, working the student store and whatnot, but nothing ever came from it. Positions were probably super popular because it was the whole school, but I don't know, the theater positions always needed people. There was no competition whatsoever, and of course, it went through my uh, financial aid package, so, you know, theater didn't have to pay for it or anything. So, yeah, uh, this was mostly settled in at the end of the fall semester when one of my crewmates told me about, you know, working on campus, and it sounded awesome. It was the exact same stuff I was doing that semester, except just getting paid for it. So like, cool. I would love to do that, and I don't know. It all just really worked out, and yeah, and I I talked to, you know, the person in charge of that, and we settled it, and I started working in January, in the campus theater, just doing the same stuff, but getting paid for it. So, um, yeah, uh, it was really awesome. I'm still doing it. Of course, I'm still in school, so still working through financial aid and such like that. Uh, but yeah, spring semester later on, you know, aside from all that stuff, I was offered, excuse me, offered to operate the fly rail system for the big play that we did, and that was super cool. Like, um, we don't usually, from what I've seen, we don't usually use the fly rail system for the performances. Like, aside from, I guess, you know, bringing in electrics and, you know, switching them out and whatever. But it wasn't like bringing set pieces in and out was is not really a common thing we do here, at least as far as I've been here. So that was already like something I didn't think about at all, but you know, something I never did. And I was like, hey, I was asked by the ugh, losing my words here. The department chair asked myself and some of my crewmates, you know, if we wanted to do it, and we did, and it was so fun. Like, it was such a bummer that I couldn't see it in motion, like at an audience level, since I wasn't since I wasn't in the audience. But um, like, I think it was maybe a month or two ago, uh, someone told me that there was a recording of it. I'm like, oh, cool. So I actually got to see it. I'm like, wow, that must have been way awesome to actually see it live. But anyway, yeah, I we were just trained on how to do it, and it was awesome. I loved it. Yeah, man, there's so much I could say about it, but I feel like I'd be there forever. But point is, I loved it. And I would love to do it again. But moving on from that, I there was I will say it's kind of hard talking about all this stuff I'm doing because I don't want to give specifics and then people look it up and then find where I am. I'm like I don't want that. So I'll just have to be quite vague with this stuff if you don't mind. Um, but there was an event in the beginning of the summer, like right after school let out for spring, and I was offered to not offered. I was asked if I wanted to operate the lights for some short plays that were happening. I'm like, I've never operated lights before, but I mean, if someone wants to teach me, then yeah, we'll do it. So that's what happened. I I literally had 1 week. I whatever. I had 1 week to learn how to do it. Like it was like yeah, 1 week to do it because the performances were like the the week after. So yeah, I was taught how to use a lighting console, and it was super cool. There's a lot of button pressing and some just formula memorizing, and it was amazing. I loved it, and of course, I got to operate it during the plays. I I mean, operating it during the plays is the easy part. It was the tech rehearsals and programming the lights that took a while, but I loved those, so no problem for me on that. But it's just a new experience that I hadn't had, and then loved doing it. So there was that. I got to talk a little bit more to the lighting professor. Well, I didn't really talk to her that much. She wasn't deeply involved in this, as far as I knew. I didn't see her at all. But mm, oh, how did I get in contact with the lighting professor? I think I just saw her around or something like that. Oh no, actually, yeah, my first instance of lighting was actually in the fall. Yeah, in the fall of when I first started doing like theater stuff. Um, I was just helping with something uh, for the production at that point. But yeah, I don't know. It was one of my crewmates who told me that the lighting professor had some summer potential summer positions, summer 2024, so this year, and just to reach out to her and get some information. So I did that. I asked her like, "Do you have any positions?" And she's like, "Not me, but some people around." So I reached out to those people, and one of them was saying, we're doing like a strike of our set if you want to help us with that. So I was like, sure. It's 3 days, nothing huge and nothing too small. So I'm like, yeah, they'll be great. I know how to strike now that I've been with the theater a little bit. So I did that, and at the end of it, they're like, well, you're on our payroll now, and we'll just tell you when our next set build is. I was like, really? So I was just I was just hired, and I wasn't like I didn't have to go through any like interview. I think I might have sent them a resume beforehand when I was initially asking if they had any positions. But even so, it wasn't. It felt very not traditional in a sense. But I guess just showing up there and working, even just for a little bit, already just I guess proved myself that hey, I can do something, and I have enough knowledge to do stuff for you. So I, I don't know. It felt so cool that I pretty much, you know, a lot of this experience has been me bypassing things, which I really love. Oh, my screen just went dark. I don't know if that went through, but yeah, it's just been a lot of bypassing things. Like with the advanced stagecraft class, I didn't do the intro class, but I bypassed it because I don't know, professor liked me and thought that, I might like the class. And of course, yep, I love the class. So, and then here with this, working for this theater was like, I didn't do an interview because I guess my interview was just already working with them. So, I don't know, things like that are just really funny to me. And that was um, my first job outside of school. So that was neat. I was able to build their next set. Uh, I mean, the play's over now already, but it was cool. Like my first theater job outside of school. I'm like, whoa. So yeah, well that was later on, uh, months after that. But you know, yeah, yeah, and that brings us to a very interesting development. But um, well, I think it was in the summer, or like maybe the end of the summer, where I was like, I'm doing all this like live entertainment stuff, all these like events and things. And I was like, what if I what if I volunteered at a furry convention? Because oh man, so I have this whole thing with furry conventions. So I have been, in the furry community since I was a child. That's been like a whole lifelong thing. But the conventions in particular were always a really strange, it's not a strange thing, but it's like me going to convert me going to furry conventions was never really in the plans really. Like I mean there are a few factors like I lived in the middle of nowhere and uh, like I said this was like ever since I was a kid kind of thing. So I didn't have the funds even to, oh man, fly out to wherever or travel in general if it's like like a car distance away, I guess. But the travel and then the lodging and then going to the convention and buying things at the convention and food and whatever, it was so expensive. So there's already a huge like expense part of it that I was like, that's no. Um, so aside from the financial part of it, I also just didn't think, yeah, excuse me, I didn't think that I would even really enjoy being there because, oh man, uh, well, I guess one part of it was like I didn't know anyone who would even want to go with me. Like, my parents wouldn't be interested. I didn't know anyone who would want, yeah, I didn't know anyone who I would go with, and it also just didn't seem like a fun thing. Like, weirdly enough, like it looked cool, and I loved seeing the photos, all the fursuits and all these things people did, like whatever. But the panels. Uh, I don't know. The convention aspect of it was really. Um, it didn't seem fun. Like it seemed way too overwhelming. Like you just have all these options that you can do, you have like full control as to like full volition of what you're going to do at what certain time. It just, I don't know, it seemed like so much pressure to choose out of what you want to do and what you'll have to miss out on. And so many people, so loud. It's like, oh man, it just seems so overwhelming. I'm like, I'm not into that. So yeah, so I just never went. I'm like, yep, that looks fun, but I mean, the pictures look fun, but I'm not going to those things. So yeah, never went to them. But like I said, in comes the summer when I'm thinking about it randomly. I don't know why, but yeah, I was like, you know what? I I set up stages and things. I guess I didn't mention that, but part of my job was also setting up um, stages for there's like music performances and things. So there's that. So I was like, yeah, I do that. Like I set up stages and I build things and I now have a little bit of like lighting operation stuff on my belt too. So I'm like, should I? So I I went and looked up, like furry conventions this year, and long story short, I found another furry con, which was their first year. It was in September. It was really awesome, and I already wrote a whole like blog post about that whole thing, so I won't go too into detail when you can just find it, read it, whatever. But it was just a blast, and I met so many people. Um, I didn't really keep in touch with them, but it was just really cool that all the things that I had learned in just 2 semesters of school was all completely applicable to what I was doing for the convention. Setting up stages. We didn't. I didn't do any carpentry stuff, which is whatever, but it was still super relevant. And then, well, I'm finding myself wanting to just go over basically what I put on my blog post, but I still want to mention the fact that I operated lights for the dance competitions. Uh, well, some of them anyway. Of course, I wasn't really that great at it. I never did any live AV stuff before, and I was kind of nervous about being too much. And well, and I was also told that like we shouldn't go too overboard with them anyway, like especially like no strobes and such. So I was just kind of nervous about being too much and overdoing it or whatever. But I still liked what I ended up doing, and it was neat being able to do something that wasn't like set up in queues like I had done for the summer plays. So it was just a new experience, which was really cool. And everyone around me was also really awesome too. And of course, the community aspect of it was big, asking for someone's names. And I was able to recall all the people's names that I interacted with. I'm like, this is wild. Like, whoa, all this stuff is just, I don't know. It was really, really special to uh, take a community that I've been a part of for so long, furry, and being able to combine it with something I'm super passionate about now that was like super recent, which is, theater and, theater tech in general, you know. So, I don't know, it's just very special to combine those together. And yeah, I just loved it. And well, I I remember actually saying this to this person I dragged with me to volunteer as well. But I was like, all right, I this was super fun, but you know, I was doing, one a year. Just one, I feel like that'll be good. That's enough. But well, I've already uh, I've already sent in another application to volunteer at uh another. Wow, it's weird to say another furry con because that's what the one I volunteered at was called. So figure that out. So point is, I'm probably attending two furry conventions next year and being on the volunteer team, and yeah, so hopefully I keep it at two and do other things with my life, but you know I guess we'll see. But yeah, I mean, so I'm recording this on Sunday, and I the year's not over. I'm still actually I'll be working a New Year's event that I found through one of my crewmates, so that'll be fun. But oh, and another thing I wanted to mention was that getting jobs in this field is really like I had mentioned earlier that when I was applying to just regular jobs like normal retail and whatever, I just really didn't like submitting just an application online and seeing it disappear because you know as more on that, it's like it it feels like it's just gonna disappear and that no one is gonna see it, and that's probably the case. And why I didn't get jobs. Of course, I knew like there are certain keywords you want to put and things like that, but uh, something that was different that is different about this is that I instead of submitting an application online just to get disappeared, whatever, I actually get to I email people directly with my interests. Of course I'd include a resume, but it's just a blank it's an email. Like I can type whatever I want in there. So I get to tell them exactly what I'm looking for, and I get to tell them my excitement into as about getting to learn new stuff with them and ask questions, and it's just so much more human. Like it feels like I'm actually gonna reach someone, and the very few times where the answer is a no, it's more of a no, but there's these other people who you might want to talk to. So yeah, it's just something so different. It's so communicative, as I've already talked about with the social aspect of the green room and whatever. But yeah, it's so different. Ah, yeah, I think I already said this, but it is kind of a little unfortunate that I can't really talk super specific about the work I'm doing. Like, it just gives away my position, and I've been less and less open about myself online compared to how I used to be. Um, you know, whatever. But I don't know. I still think it's at least what I've talked about is a nice bit of info that could be good to know, or at least just nice for me to talk about. Like, man, it was just like a little over a year ago that I was doing nothing. I had no idea what was in store for me whatsoever. Like, really had no clue about what theater was other than acting and I don't know, I guess Hamilton. But yeah, my life was going nowhere. I really saw no future. and no one believed I was capable of doing anything. But here I am, you know, actually getting work, and I mean, my life isn't solved. Like I've barely scratched the surface, and I haven't gotten to the point that I'm like living comfortably or anything like that. Like I don't have a stable income. It's pretty hectic. But I don't know. I'm just actually getting somewhere for once in my life. Um, I'm I'm 20. Well, I'm nearing the end of being 26, and it took me over 25 years of like like meandering. But I don't know. I'm finally here, and I'm just really excited to see where this all takes me. You know, the theater tech world is incredibly huge. Like again, I've barely scratched the surface of what all this is, and it's kind of overwhelming, but it's also exciting. Like the places that I end up in, I don't think anyone expects you to know everything, which is nice because we all just learn from each other. Like, um, yeah, like I just learn stuff all the time, and everyone's really excited to teach me because, like, oh, like, and I mean, I'm there too because I'm a little bit more, um, like, I've advanced my stuff, my skills as well. So people also ask me, like, hey, how do you do this? I'm like, oh, I know how. So it's just a big community of like learning stuff from each other and implementing what we've learned like immediately. And it's just really cool. And I don't know, it's fun to learn and interact. So, um, yeah, uh, yeah. So, I mean, I feel like, well, it's weird to say that like my story's kind of unique because I feel like everyone's is, but for me in particular, it's unique in the fact that like nothing had happened in my life and it's really hard to move on. Everything's stagnant and nobody's hiring me for stuff. It's it's an uncommon thing, I would say, um, but not necessarily difficult with the extremes that people experience. Of course, I consider myself super lucky that the only things that I struggled with were like the, like difficulties with my parents and finding a job and like I always had a bed to sleep in and food to eat and such. But I don't know. I'm sure at least some of this has resonated with someone. I hope. Um, I don't know. I guess if there's anything that anyone can take out of this, regardless of if you relate or not, it's just I don't know. Just don't stop doing stuff, even if it seems trivial. Like I just joined theater thinking that it was something I was gonna do for a short little while before moving on to do the next thing because I was just looking for stuff to put on resumes. Like I don't know, I didn't think any of it. I was like, oh, I'll just do that for a little bit and I'll screw off and everyone will forget about me like always. But that was just a teeny little thing, little chance, I guess I would take on it. I mean, I wasn't even gambling for anything, but I, just did something. And here I am doing all this wild stuff that I never would have imagined. Like welding, going to furry conventions, and talking to people again. Like, I don't know. Like who knew, you know? But yeah, um, yeah, that's all I wrote in my notes. Happy New Year, everybody.